welcome to another episode of Goal Horns and Fight Songs. I'm your host, as always, Wes, on Twitter at Painted Bronco. And once again, joining me is my co-host, Mike, at Maro04 on the Twitters. We have a guest joining us once again. He is a return guest, so we're going to just jump right into it and not delay. Once again, he's the 2019 Ice Vegas Internet Invitational MVP for the Western Broncos, because football was news today, and baseball. Trevor Gorsuch. Trevor,
how's it going, guys?
Good. How are you?
Doing good. Can't complain.
We're just gonna jump all over each other like we've never done this before, apparently.
Yeah, we just don't know how this works.
Yeah. So last time you were on the show, we talked more about your college career, but you have a pretty unusual start to your pro career too, because of the way seasons broke down in COVID and everything. So I kind of want to touch more on that this time, if you're willing and down for that.
No. I'm always open. Like I told you guys last time, I'll talk anybody's ear off, and like I'm sure when you talk to Ethan Frank, he told you as well that I'll just talk and talk and talk. But yeah, I've had a very interesting pro career, to say the least. So it depends on where you want to start with it.
So you make the most out of your senior year, which we discussed in length last time. You know, the ups and downs of that whole thing. Did you go straight to Toledo out of Western?
So to recap a little bit, my senior year had a great season. We were second in the division in our conference, and we were playing Colorado College at home for the first round of playoffs. And there was this huge storm out in Colorado because it was supposed to be a Friday, Saturday, Sunday series. And instead, Colorado College, dicked around and waited till like Thursday night to try to fly out of Colorado, somewhere wherever they're from, Colorado Springs, to fly out to Kalamazoo. And there was this huge storm, and they weren't able to leave. So then they pushed the series to Saturday, Sunday, Monday.
Yep.
They needed. And so, our team came out really lax and like, oh, they've been sitting in an airport all day and we lost game one. Then we came off pissed off with a vengeance and won game two. And then we reverted right back to how we were game one, and it's going to be easy. We embarrassed them game two, and we lost game three in a heartbreak with I want to say a minute and a half left to go in the game. So soon as that ends, the three other seniors, not including myself, were Colt Conrad, Corey Schooneman, and Jade McMullen. Well, Colt signed with the Toronto Marlies.
Yep.
And left immediately to go to the ECHL to play with Toronto. Corey Schooneman signed with Stockton, the Stockton Heat, which is Calgary's AHL team, so he left immediately. Jade signed actually with Kalamazoo, and he left pretty much immediately. And then there was me. And my agent, now that I could officially call him an agent after my senior season was over, no longer just an advisor, because, the NCAA is weird about those kind of rulings. He pretty much was like, hey, there's only 3.5 weeks or so left in the professional season of minor leagues. More than likely, no one's going to pick up a goalie or need a goalie because you can't play in the playoffs because you won't have enough games and whatever. I was like, oh, okay. So he's like, so enjoy being a senior. Enjoy just being a college student, just a student. No athletics, nothing. Just enjoy being a regular college student for the first time in 4 years. And I was like, oh, okay. So just enjoy being a regular person and then get back into the training, get ready for the season in the summer. So I was like, okay. Well, me and the rest of my team went on a 10-day bender. Season was done. We were all over the place. I mean, I was eating nothing but just shit food and beer and liquor. And I mean, my liver hated me for those 10 days. And I woke up, and it was the day before my girlfriend's birthday. I'll never forget it because we had plans to do something for her birthday. It was a pretty big day for her, because we had the whole thing. She was taking a self-defense class, and they were going to a shooting range on her birthday, and it was $10 for us to come and join. So we were all going to go to the shooting range and go shoot guns and hang out and have a big birthday dinner and whatever. So it's the day before. And I wake up in bed and I feel like a bag of ass. I am dead. I am like, okay, I need to get my life in order. And I'm like, I'm going to go to the gym. I'm going to just kind of walk on the treadmill or the Stairmaster, just kind of sweat out some of the beer and do something active. And as I'm having this thought, my head coach.
Was that me? You? Oh, man. Give it just a second.
Yeah, call your agent. He just got off the phone with me. And I was like, okay. So I call my agent, and he's like, hey, Toledo's got an opening. They have no goalies. Pat Nagel just got called up to Grand Rapids because they had a goalie that got hurt, and then their other goalie, Caden Fulcher, is getting called up to Detroit because they had an injury. And so Fulcher was on an NHL entry deal, so he could go all the way up, but Nagel was only on an AHL two-way, so he can only go to Grand Rapids. So they're like, they have no goalies, and they might need you to play tonight. And I am like excited, but I am also just panicking because I finally blurred out. I was like, Lewis, I haven't skated or done anything athletic in 10 days. I was like, I'm not ready to play tonight. And he just kind of like a long pause, a long silence, almost to the point where I was like, Lewis, are you still there? And then he's like, okay, I'll call him back, say you can't play tonight, but get on the fucking ice. Pardon my language if I can't use that word.
Nah, you're good.
I feel like you get okay. He's like, get on the ice. And I was like, okay. So I hang up with him and I put in our team group chat. I was like, hey, I'm playing pro hockey. Well, he goes, get on the ice because you're for sure playing tomorrow. And I'm like, okay. So I put in the team group chat, hey, I'm playing pro hockey tomorrow. I need to skate. Almost half the team showed up. I had Wade Allison, Hugh McGing, all sorts of guys just show up ready to run me through a goalie skate. Our goalie coach at the time, Tom Askey, came out, ran me through like a 45, 50-minute skate. And then I just packed up as much stuff as I thought I could need and drove to Toledo that night. Now, my girlfriend wasn't too happy that I was bailing on the birthday plans and everything. And yeah, she still isn't very happy when it gets brought up. But I have to remind her, I was like, hey, I got you tickets to come to my first ever professional game, and I won. And I gave like you the game puck too. So like, like happy birthday. And she's like, it passes. I'm like, okay, good. But yes, so I drove there that night, and Nagel was able to stay one more day. So he played that night, and I think they lost in a shootout or maybe in overtime. And I have a morning skate the next day, and I'm skating with a few of the extra guys. And I have no idea. I have no idea the teams. I haven't looked up the Toledo Walleye or the standings or the rest of the league to know anything. And one of my new teammates goes, how you feeling? I was like, I feel great, actually. I feel really good. He's like, good. Yeah, well, it's going to be a tough one tonight. It's going to be a little bit of a baptism by fire. And I go, what do you mean? And he goes, well, we're playing Cincinnati. And I go, who the fuck's Cincinnati? And he goes, they're just the best team in the league. They're one win from winning the Barabam Cup, which is like the President's Trophy for the ECHL. And I'm like, oh, so my first pro game is against the best team in this league. And they're like, yeah. And I'm like, okay, great. Here we go. And so then I get into the game and I feel really good. And the first shot I see, I'm really nervous. I'm almost never nervous for games. I've gone my entire career of always seeming to just be able to control the moment and breathe and relax. But I think it was something about the fact that I had my girlfriend, one of our mutual best friends, my parents were there, and then one of my other buddies, my roommate from Kalamazoo, Will Massey, was there, I believe. And all of them were there. And I could feel myself being super nervous. I'm standing there during the national anthem, and I had that thought of, when was the last time I breathed? And I was like, breathe. And I realized I was holding my breath. I was so nervous. I'm just standing there. I'm like, and I just finally get this giant gasp of air. I'm like, holy God, I was about to pass out. And probably within the first 2 minutes, the first shot I see was a slap shot from the blue line that went right into my glove. Like, it was perfectly glove side, slap shot, and I just gloved it. And I immediately just, all of that nervousness went from here to just plummet it. And I was like, oh, I got this. And We end up winning the game 2-1 in overtime, I believe. Either 2-1 or 3-2. I'm drawing a blank. I think it was 2-1. 2-1 in overtime. I made 35 saves. That was the funny part, is because I number 35. So I made 35 saves in a 2-1 win. It was 2-1. Now I'm remembering. It was 2-1 win in overtime. And I'm just ecstatic. And it was the coolest, craziest week and a half of after my college season ended to playing my first pro game, getting my first pro win. And it was just like the biggest whirlwind of all time. But yeah, so then I went on to play, including that game, 4 of the last 5 regular season games that season for the Walleye. And that was the start of my career.
Awesome. So you go from there, I think that's the 20...
That'd be 2019, 2020.
Okay. So then we get into the silly season that ends kind of tragically. What happens in the offseason? Where do you go from Toledo? Did they re-sign you? Did you sign with somebody else?
No. So at that time, they were going into the playoff push there, and I'll tell you the funny story about my going into my last game with the Walleye. That'll be my funny story at the end. Just remind me of that. Okay. So I don't want to get off track too much. So they still had their 2 goalies. They had Fulcher and they had Nagel coming back for the next season. And the head coach, Dan Watson, was very upfront with me, and he's like, Trevor, we really like you as a goalie. We really like you as a person. Unfortunately, we have 2 affiliated goalies coming back. We just don't have any room. So I was like, okay. He's like, if anything opens up, you will be hearing from us because we want you. And I was like, okay. So I end up becoming a free agent. I'm a free agent because they didn't re-sign me. They didn't sign me because I was on a PTO. I was on a professional tryout contract pretty much for those last 4 out of 5 games. I was getting chicken feed for pay. Like, I was getting a free hotel room, but I was getting like maybe $60 a day, something like that. It wasn't much, maybe not even that much. But anyway, so I was a free agent, and I signed with the Reading Royals out in Reading, Pennsylvania, which is ironically where when you play Monopoly, it's Reading Railroad, not Reading Railroad. That is where that is. It is the Reading Railroad. And let me tell you, that railroad sucks because it runs right through the heart of downtown, and right through the heart of downtown, right where those railroad tracks are, is about not even a half a block from the arena. So you have to basically hope to God that you beat the train so that you can get to the arena on time for either practice or games.
Okay, so I mean, it's not unlike Lawson if you're trying to cross stadium and the Amtrak's there.
It's a little similar but different,
Yeah.
Because stadium, that's a fan usually. You're trying to cross stadium to get to Lawson. Players, you're usually at Lawson. When you're at Western, you're living on campus, so you're not dealing with Amtrak. This is a player trying to get to the game, and all of a sudden there's a train, and you have to call your head coach and be like, hey, yeah, I know I was already cutting it close, but I'm staring at a train right now, and I can't do anything. Do you want me to just park my car here in the street and just walk in? Like, what do you want here? So anyway, so I signed with Reading, and it was the way it was told to me, it was going to be me and a guy on an NHL entry deal. So it was going to be me and a guy named Krill Ustamenko. Super Italian, if you couldn't tell.
That is a name and a half.
I was joking. He's very, very, very Russian.
Oh yeah,
very
way to go, Wes.
I put that together.
Right.
I'm just saying on complexity of names, it was
a
solid name.
Oh yeah. Well, we shortened it to Usti. So it was supposed to be me and Usti. And throughout training camp, I felt really good. Played really good in the exhibition game I got. I played against the Adirondack Thunder and won like 5-2, but made 40-something saves and played just really, really good. So I'm like, hell yeah, like this is going to be a great season. And we come back from Adirondack. We have a day off the next day. And then I come into the locker room the day after that, and my gear is like pushed off into the corner, like into this tiny little stall in the corner of the locker room. And there's another goalie gear in where my stall was when I left. And I'm like, that's not my gear. and they had sent another goalie from that they had hoped would make the AHL team to Reading. So now there was 2 goalies on NHL entry deals and me. So I was the third man out, and like I kind of briefed you about beforehand, like I didn't play. I was practicing and getting the scraps of reps in practice, and only got to play in one game, and it wasn't a great game. I hadn't played in almost 2 months, I want to say, at that time. Hadn't played a game in almost 2 months, so very rusty, trying to prove myself and show that I belonged here and everything. Still ended up winning the game, but it wasn't a pretty game. So I played that one game, and then I continued to go back to being that third string guy, and then finally they released me. And they release me and send me to a team in Fayetteville, North Carolina, called the Fayetteville Marksmen in the SBHL, which is a league below the ECHL. And I'm there for about 2 weeks. And I play 3 games while I was there and played pretty well. And then I get called from Toledo to join Toledo, go up, play 1 game for Toledo, play against Fort Wayne, win 3-2 in a shootout. In a matter of a week, I kid you not, I can't make this up. In a matter of a week, I went from the SBHL to the ECHL and played 1 game, to then I was the backup for 2 games in the AHL for the Chicago Wolves. And then when I came back from that little backup stint in the AHL, the Red Wings had activated a NHL entry deal guy named Philip Larsen, who played at Denver. They had activated him off injury list, and then I was again the third man out. And then I sat there just practicing, not playing, so on and so forth. And then all of a sudden, COVID cut the season, and then it was early off season. And it was okay. Now I got to try and figure out what to do. So I think that's about covers that season.
Yeah. So
that would be about it.
So that's the season that the NHL finishes in the pods up in Canada. Yep. We come back. The next season's for the NHL. It's moderately similar to like a normal season, other than guys are just playing conference opponents.
Yeah.
But I think you guys still had like an odd season where like there were certain teams that didn't want to restart hockey yet. There was like weird things where like you could be leased to a different team, but like how was that whole thing?
It was a there was a cluster. It was a cluster hump. So I had originally re-signed to play with Toledo. It was supposed to be me and the goalie that is still there, Billy Christopoulos. It was supposed to be me and him because they weren't supposed to have any affiliate goalies. And Toledo, the Walleye were pushing to play. We were pushing to play. Hey, we're going to join the season in January. Just a few months short of everybody else. There's a few other teams that were joining in February or January. I mean, not February. We were joining in February. And all of a sudden, the Huntington Center here in Toledo, I want to say seats like 8,500 people or something, maybe more than that. I don't know. It's a pretty good stadium. It's a good sized stadium. It's a great minor league stadium. And, originally we had heard, and the reason we were pushing forward to play was the state governor and everything had given us the clearance to have 5,000 fans. And on the day that we were, all of us, getting on a Zoom call into the league and commit to playing the season, the governor's office called the Walleye and said, cut a 0 off the end of that. We're going to give you 500 fans. At that moment, the Walleye said, nope, can't do it. We're not going to play. And basically just shotgun splattered all of us to different teams. So I went down to, I was originally flying. I originally got called by a team, the Wichita Thunder, and I was flying to Dallas to meet them to play the Allen American. So like they're just outside of Dallas is where they're at, but you fly into Dallas. So I was flying down to Dallas to meet Wichita. As I'm boarding the plane, the Wichita head coach calls me and goes, hey, we got a touch of the COVID. We're not traveling. Can you not get on the flight? And I go, I'm boarding. Like, my stuff is already on the plane. Like, I'm going to Dallas. And he's like, okay, we'll have you stay in Dallas, and then we'll fly you to Wichita the next day. I was like, oh, okay, cool. So I let my agent know. I was like, hey, Wichita's not actually playing. They got COVID. He goes, what flight are you on? I was like, I'm on Southwest. My parents are members, so I have the like on-flight Wi-Fi and everything like that. He's like, okay, I'll let you know. And I'm like, he's like, did you sign anything? I was like, no, it was kind of like a verbal agreement. They paid for my flight here. He's like, okay, hangs up. As I'm on the flight, I'm halfway to Dallas from wherever I was at, Detroit, because I flew out of the Detroit airport. I'm halfway in the flight. My agent calls me, Jacksonville needs a goalie. And I'm like, okay, well, I'm flying to Dallas. They're like, well, buy a flight from Dallas to Jacksonville. And I'm like, okay. And they're going to reimburse me for this, right? Yes. So the only ticket available is at a plane that leaves 30 something minutes after I land in Dallas. And it was like $600. It was a first class ticket. And it was getting into Jacksonville at like 2 a.m. So I was like, sure, let's go. Shit. So I land in Dallas. Here's the thing, because it's not technically a connecting flight, I had to get my bags, do the quick little mini check-in, race through Dallas security, sprint. I'm wearing khaki pants, a polo, and a light jacket, trying to look professional and travel like business casual to meet possibly this new team and make a good first impression. I am now sprinting through the Dallas airport with my carry-on bag and backpack, looking like a full-blown idiot. I get to the plane as if it's the scene at Home Alone 2 where they're like closing the door and he gets to the gate and he's like, no, I'm on this plane. That was me. And I'm literally just drenched in sweat. Like, I am just soaked to the bone in sweat. And I finally get down to Jacksonville. They put me up in a hotel. The next day, they're like, hey, we're going to have you do a drive-through COVID test to make sure you're clean. I was like, yeah, no, I feel fine. I've only been traveling for like 14 hours, but it's good. Like, no. Apparently, my drive-through COVID test comes back positive. And I'm like, well, shit. So now I'm sitting in a hotel and they're like, all right, we're going to move you into the COVID apartment. I'm like, the COVID apartment? They're like, yeah, that's the apartment we put the players that if they test COVID positive, we move them into there and we keep everybody else separate. I'm like, oh my God. So they moved me into this COVID apartment. And as I'm moving in, they're like, hey, we got a game tonight in Greenville or whatever. And I'm already part of the team group chat. And as they're driving back from the team group chat, as they're driving back from Greenville to Jacksonville, the whole group chat's just like, hey, anybody else feel like shit? Yeah, no, I couldn't breathe. I was coughing up blood on the bench. Like, guys just talking all about, we had 14 guys. I had no contact with them. 14 guys test COVID positive the next day.
Jesus.
So our team shut down, and I'm like, well, now I'm here, and we're shut down for a whole week. So, like, I'm not really missing anything. I only missed one game. And, I mean, it was a cluster. So I'm there for about, I don't know, probably 2 months-ish, and I never see the ice. I never play a game. I practice, but the coach never puts me in. And when I went there, he was like, yeah, our other goalie's really struggling right now, and I'm going to, I need somebody to push him, and I know you can play in this league. And I'm like, great. Never saw the ice. Even in games where we were getting kind of blown out and it was like 4-1 in the third period, like, no, didn't even get the game. So he had brought in another goalie for that game that I got COVID or whatever, and he had gotten called up pretty much right after that game because he's a perennial guy that has played in the league for a long time and gotten call ups and downs and whatever. So he comes back from his little call up. And I haven't played a game. And the coach there looks at me and he's like, hey, I don't want to release you. You've been a great guy. You've done everything we've asked you. We're going to try and trade you. I was like, okay, I really appreciate that. So I go back to my apartment and I'm packing things up and I'm pretty much packed up. My dad had drove my car. I'd been there so long. My dad had drove my car from Toledo to Jacksonville, Florida for me. So I had a car. Well, I'm basically packing all my stuff up. And then he calls me at 7 o'clock that night after he'd had this conversation of trying to trade me. And I was like, what's going on? And he goes, have you heard anything yet? And I go, how would I have heard anything? You're the one trying to trade me. And he goes, well, we're just going to release you. So I need you to come to the rink tomorrow at 7 a.m. because we're leaving for a bus trip at 8. And I was just like, fuck you. Like, God, you're an asshole. So I get to the rink at 7 a.m. and this guy isn't even there. This coach doesn't even have the balls to look me in the eye and be like, hey, man, sorry. So I get to the rink, I pack up my stuff, and I start driving back to Toledo because I have nowhere to go. So I drive back to Toledo, and I'm in Toledo for about a week, and I go up, and I'm training with my goalie coach and everything, and all of a sudden I get a call to go out to Utah and join the Utah Grizzlies. And I'm like, sweet, yeah, no, let's go. What am I flying out of Detroit? Like, where am I? And they're like, well, we've got a couple off days, so we were thinking you could drive out here so you had a car. And I'm like, drive. I am in Toledo, Ohio. You are in Utah, Salt Lake City, Utah, on the other side of the damn country. You want me to drive? And they were like, yeah. So I call my dad and I go, hey, Dad, you want to make a road trip? And he goes, where are we going? I go, Salt Lake City. And he goes, they're not flying you? And I go, no. So I picked my dad up in Chicago, and he and I start eastbound and down and our way over to Salt Lake City, except no one mentions until we're halfway through this journey and we're getting close that there's a blizzard hitting Denver and that side of the country. And wouldn't you know it, that the directions take you through Denver and then up to Salt Lake City. So here we are going below Denver, through Nevada, and then straight up into Utah. Like, we were in the desert and just like looking around like, if we run out of gas, we're dead. And then we were driving in like the snowy part of the mountains where there's no railings, and he and I are looking down like, that's a solid 400, 500 foot drop of pure nothingness. And we're in a white car and there's nothing but white snow. So we're never being found.
Well, they'll find you.
And like, it was spring. But it was beautiful though. That was the thing. Like, it was beautiful, but it was also like, you're all of a sudden doing like, I felt like I was in the Indy 5, like not the Indy. I felt like I was not boxcar racing, but
like sprint car.
Where they're doing sprint car. They're doing the basically almost like a figure eight, like a 90-degree turn. Like, we're going downhill and we had to make a turn like C. Like, we're going downhill and then make a C turn. And I'm like, this is all ice and snow. Like, we're going to die. So I get out to Utah and I play really well. I played a good amount of games while I was out there. And then they had their affiliate goalies get sent back to them. And the coach came to me. He's like, hey, man, you played great for us. And we really like you and liked you as a player, but we have to take our affiliate guys. I was like, I get it. So I pack up my stuff again, and I'm starting to drive back to Toledo because I have no other options. And as I'm driving, my agent goes, hey, or not even my agent. My agent, I basically was firing and changing agents at the time just because we were on different paths. Like, he was more of an AHL, NHL agent, and I wasn't there. So he wasn't really attuned to where I was at. And we were just on different pages, and it was fine. We ended very amicably, and I still think he's a great guy and a great agent. I just think we were at different paths right now. So it was basically the walleye coach was acting as my agent. And he called one of his buddies that's a coach that was coaching down in the SB, down in Macon, Georgia. And he's like, hey, would you mind going to Macon? They're the number one team in the SB. They're going to make the playoffs. They need a goalie. They just had a goalie. They get a concussion. Would you want to go down there and play? I was like, hell yeah, I'll go down there and play. So I go down there, and the coach calls me. He's like, hey, I know this is going to be beneath you. Like, I know you're better than playing here in the ESB. He's like, I've seen you play. I know you're better than this. But do you want to come down here and play out the rest of the season, possibly win a championship with us? I was like, you got me. Like, I'll come down and play. So I go down there and I play a handful of games again, like 2 or 3. And while I'm down there, the Fort Wayne Comets call me, and they're like, "Hey, we need a goalie." So then I'm driving up to Fort Wayne, Indiana. And so I put so many miles on that car and driving all over Hell's Half Acre. And you know, the unbelievable experiences I got to have and play in all these different places, I think really helped me this past year because I actually played instead of taking that whole year off like other guys did. And I really saw firsthand from one of my teammates and, former Bronco, I love him, Matheson Icapelli, took that whole year off and he really suffered to start the year last year. He just was a step behind. He was a little off on his goal scoring and everything like that. And then after he played about, I don't know, a third of the season, things started to click and he started to figure it out. So I was really, even though it was a whirlwind of traveling the country and, my dad and I joked that it was almost like being an Old West gunslinger. I was just going from town to town. They needed me for a 5-game stint and then I was on to the next town, or they needed me for something. I was on to the next place. So it was just kind of one of those things and that was the way I looked at it. Instead of looking at it as like I'm bouncing around, I'm a suitcase. It was more of I was going where I was needed and where people wanted me, and that was the best. It was definitely hard, but it was a good experience.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely interesting, and I think the most interesting thing was you kind of said that your Toledo coach ended up being your agent there for a while. Because how were you still considered a Toledo player and just leased out, or how was that kind of?
Yes, so I was technically still a leased out walleye player, and then when it came to the end of that season, there was still that grace period of I was still protected. Only the walleye could talk to me, so on and so forth. And then it came time to send the qualifying offers out to people. And if they didn't send you a qualifying offer, you were a free agent. But I didn't know any of this. I was still so new to all of this. I'd never been through any of this. And so I got the Twitter notification that the Walleye had posted their protected list and who they sent qualifying offers to. And I opened that up and I don't see my name on that list. So I immediately called Dan Watson. I was like, "Hey, Waddy, what's this all mean? I don't understand. I'm so new to this, still so new to this stuff. What does that mean?" And he's like, "Yeah, we only had so many protected offers to send out, and we feel like we're going to go with Christopoulos." And I was like, "Oh." He's like, "So you're a free agent now, so you can go wherever." And I was like, "Huh." So I was pretty upset. And I was so upset. I was on the golf course and I was walking the golf course. I was playing golf, just trying to enjoy my day. I had a day off from work that day and I was just playing golf. I literally walked off, I think, the 9th green. I couldn't even finish the round. I was so upset and frustrated because I was like, what did I do wrong? I played well. I had success. What happened? Why didn't I get this opportunity? And I didn't really understand. Well, every time, it's such a stupid and cliche phrase, one door opens one door closes, another door opens. And I'm sitting there and I walked off the golf course. I'm sitting in my girlfriend's apartment and I'm sitting here and I'm just distraught. And out of the blue, my goalie coach calls me and he goes, "Hey, I just saw Toledo's qualifying offers and you weren't on it. What's your plan?" And I was like, "I don't know, man. I don't have a plan." And he's like, "Would you mind if I give your number and information to Marty, who's the assistant coach at Kalamazoo? He's a former goalie. I used to train him. He's now the assistant coach and goalie coach at Kalamazoo." I was like, "Yes, give it to him. Now," kind of thing. And he's like, "Okay." And I'm sure he gives it to him. And Marty called me probably within the next half hour. And Marty's like, "Hey, how you doing, Trevor? What just kind of chat me up." And then he's like, "What are your plans for next year?" And I just said, "Playing for you as long as you want me." And I think he was on speakerphone with him and then the head coach, Nick Bootland, because there was just a long pause and some quiet murmuring. And I think I threw him off that I was so "I'm playing for you if you want me." And they were kind of like, I don't think they expected it to go that smoothly. I thought they were going to have to. I think they thought they were going to have to sell me on it. I was like, "No, I know you guys play against Toledo. I want to play against Toledo, and I want to shove it up there, where, every time I play against Toledo. Even if I don't win, I want to play unbelievably to have them look at me and be like, God, we had to do so much just to score on him. Like, we had to battle and play so hard just to try and beat him. And, unfortunately, we had a little bit of a weak defensive team this past season, and those plans didn't go according to plan. But there were still some games that I was able to stick to them and be like, look, see who I'm playing against? You and I'm matching up against the guy you chose for me. I just beat him. So, it was a very whirlwind and hard time. And I at no point do I don't want this all to sound like I'm like a jealous lover and I'd rather have the walleye. No, I love being a Kalamazooing. I love being a Kalamazooing. I love being in the city of Kalamazoo. It just hurt because Toledo was the first team that gave me an opportunity to play pro. I had done anything and everything that they had asked of me. I had played well every time I was there. I played well when I left, and they had helped me. And it was just kind of like out of the blue random of, hey, and not even so much as a phone call of like, hey, we're not going to put you on the protected list. We're not going to send you a qualifying offer. You're going to be a free agent. Like, they didn't even give me that kind of courtesy. So I think that's where it was more of a pissed off, like, no, you rubbed me the wrong way. And I love everything about the way that the Wings run their organization. I love that I get to work with Joel Martin, who's an ECHL Hall of Famer, one of the best ECHL goalies of all time. And he's my assistant coach. I get to work with him as my goalie coach every single day before practice, before games, everything. And what's even better is he trained with my goalie coach, who I train with over the summers. So we have the same terminology, we have the same lingo, we have the same mindset on how we look at our game and look at our approach and everything like that. And it made everything easier. Video sessions. We'd go into the video sessions and he'd be like, what do you see here? And I was like, well, I probably could have done this and this and this and like use our little language and jargon. And he's like, he just sits back and is like, that's exactly what I was going to say. He's like, you took the words right out of my mouth. And I was like, we were on the same page. And it was just the best experience I've ever had of playing pro hockey. And it's such a thing that goes unnoticed, especially for goalies, is that is a rarity to have a everyday goalie coach at your practices and games and everything. Like usually in the ECHL, you get a goalie coach once every month, maybe, who comes down to check out his affiliate goalie, and he kind of like barely works with the ECHL goalies. Kind of like, well, you're not really mine, but I'll help you a bit. So, but that led into last year. And then last year played a ton of games.
Yeah, last year we finally kind of got back to normal. I think it was still a condensed schedule as far as who was playing who. It wasn't the wide open travel. And I think even the AHL is kind of doing that again this year. I know they have like a limited travel schedule.
The AHL for sure did that. The ECHL didn't really do that much. They limited it a bit, but they still gave out there was probably still, I want to say 3-4 road trips each team that you were going a pretty good distance. Like we went Kalamazoo, we went out to Utah, and we were out in Utah for a week. We were there for 8 days. We played 4 games in 8 days. So, it was stuff like that. I think it was 6 days, 4 games in 6 days we were there. And, it was stuff like that. So they were still traveling, but it was not as open as in the past, but we still played a full 72 game schedule. We still had plenty of 5 games in 7 days, 3 games in 5 days, plenty of those. And where you're just and you're just dragging, but it's what you got to do. Go ahead.
How is the transition going from full house of fans to season's over? Next year, maybe there's a few fans here or there. I don't know if you played any games without fans completely, and then the ramp back up to being back at full capacity.
Oh God. Let's see. Well, when I was in Jacksonville, there was about half capacity for home games. When I was with Jacksonville, we traveled to Orlando, and there was like nobody in the stands. But then that's pretty typical for Orlando. I've heard is that nobody goes there. But Utah was like half capacity ish. It was pretty empty. Fort Wayne had a good amount of fans, like they always do. And then, ramping back up to the full capacity of last year, it felt more of it wasn't so much of a shock of like, oh my God, there's all these fans again. It was more of just a more familiar feeling because it was more on the other side of like where there's less fans. It was weird. It was more like when there was less fans, there's less noise, there's less buzz. It's really hard to explain. And because as an athlete, and when you're playing you're so used to a full arena of fans, and you feel that electricity in the air that they always talk about. Like you really do. You feel the energy of the crowd, whether it's your home team or your away team. You feel that energy in the building, and when all of a sudden that energy's gone, or depleted, or cut in half, like it almost feels like a practice, or it feels like a meaningless game kind of thing. Is like when you're playing it just doesn't feel the same. So last year was a bring back to familiar. It was getting back to the familiarity of playing in front of full arenas and full fans, and having that amazing atmosphere of playing in these different buildings. Playing in front of a full sold out crowd at the Huntington Center, playing in front of at Wings Event Center, fully sold out multiple games this year. Just different things made it more fun and brought back that energy level that makes it more fun to be a competitor.
We have a Twitch question here for you from Waku. Do you think there's any sort of possible road back to the Walleye? I definitely loved watching you play here, so selfishly, personally, I think your return would be awesome to see.
I've said it before. I love being here in Toledo. That's where I spend my summers. My girlfriend lives here, and she got a great job here. So I come back here in the summers. It's perfect distance for me to go and train with my goalie coach. And, I can also have my parents come see me, or I can go see my parents in St. Louis. I love it here. It's a good place. It's a comfortable place. I will never say no. I don't want to just immediately turn down the possibility of ever coming back to the Walleye. Like, it's not like I would sit there and be like, never going back there. But I will say it just depends on the right situation, the right time, right part of my career, so on and so forth. But as much as and again, this isn't to pump my own tires. I'll be the first to tell you I'm the most self-deprecating person. I'll shred myself more than anybody. I do have a pretty good thing going right now in Kalamazoo, and I feel confident and good with where I'm at. But if it was ever to open up again, and like I said, right time, right place for my career, I would, coming back to the Walleye wouldn't be a hesitation. It's a great place to play. It's one of the most fun and electrifying arenas in all of minor league sports, and including I would say some NHL teams don't even have that much fun in their buildings, So it's a great place to play. And if you've never been there, like you guys, I honestly suggest you come to a Walleye game, whether it's a Walleye versus Kalamazoo or whatever. It's a fun time. They're like I said, the year I played 4 out of the last 5 regular season games, the last home game of the season, they were like, it was their 36th consecutive sellout of the season. Just stuff like that. Like, they sell out almost every single game. And it's fun when you're the home team. It is a little intimidating the first time you come in as a road team on the opposing side. But, I learned a long time ago that you can take that energy and you can just sit there and laugh at it and build your own energy off of it. So, but yeah, I would say that there's nothing besides the current success and timing and everything of how I'm doing right now with Kalamazoo. If that was to ever change and the Walleye were to give me an opportunity or want me to be back, and there was bad blood or something going on with Kalamazoo, which I don't see, but you never know. You never know what the future holds.
Yeah, that does seem to be the one downside of like the K-Wings event center. Like I've been there a couple of times during hockey, but there's a different group of human beings that go to Western games than go to Kalamazoo Wing games. Like I wonder how much different it would be if Western didn't play like around the same time. Because I mean, yeah, there's the University of Toledo, but they're not D1, if they even have a hockey team.
I don't think they do.
No, they don't.
But like, it's a completely different crowd. Like, there's not a lot of crossover between Western fans and Kalamazoo Wings fans.
Well, the problem is that when you first get to Western, everybody tells you, literally, everybody in your indoctrination of like, not indoctrination, that sounds like you're in a cult. What is it when you go onto campus? Like your
orientation.
Thank you. See, I had the tation part of it, just couldn't. When you get to orientation, everybody, at least when I was there in my freshman year, was like, don't go. If you get to Sprinkle Road, flip a U-turn and go back. Like, you're not in a good part, kind of thing. Like, and it's like, so everybody, there's such a stigma against going out that way, student wise, that you don't get that electricity of the student crowd. So the fans you get at the K-Wings games are the adults that also go to the Western games, but then it's other people that live out by Sprinkle and wherever that are out more that way that don't travel to the Western games. So it's this weird crossover of you don't get that college student energy, and you don't get, and the Western doesn't get that kind of more mom and pop family vibe. Like you'll see the mom and pop families at the Western game, but it is few and far between. It's a lot more like
it's probably alumni who like live in the area still, or
exactly
are on that side of town.
But it's just everyday people that come to the Wings games, and then it's like just adults that love hockey, whereas the Western students don't come to the K-Wings games, because everybody tells you go out towards Sprinkle, like you're gonna die, is how it makes it sound. Like you're gonna get shot, you're gonna get like whatever, and you're like, it's not that bad of an area.
No.
Like, and so there's such a negative stigma around that, and I've tried to tell so many of my friends and everything that are there, I'm like, hey, like, it's really not a terrible area, and it's a good spot, and it's a fun venue, and there's a lot of good energy when it's a sold out, like a big, like good event, good game, special night. Like, come to one of these games and you'll see that it's a fun atmosphere that like you'll want to come back. And that's the amount of people that I did talk to last year that were like, would come to one of those bigger games and they're like, wow, I never realized actually how much fun a K-Wings game was. And I was like, you're welcome. And then they would come back, and then they would come back. And I was like, okay, now tell your friends and do the same. Like, bring them in. Come on. Like, yeah. So it's this weird breaking of the process of trying to be like, hey, but it's also very similar to why, Western students really don't go to the football games.
Yeah.
Because they got a crossover stadium. They don't want to walk over to stadium. They want to walk over to stadium to get drunk and be at the tailgate, but they don't want to walk over there and possibly get drilled by a car down stadium. Lawson is right on campus. You don't have to cross any major roads to get to Lawson.
Nope.
So that's the biggest draw of why the college age kids are all at Lawson games and not at the K-Wings games. But I've tried with my friends and my former teammates and stuff at Western to impress upon them and tell them to bring some of their friends whenever they have an off weekend or something, like, hey, come to one of my games, kind of thing. Like, come to the games. I'll get you tickets. Like, I'll get you tickets. Like, just come to the damn games.
Yeah, no, I definitely enjoy K-Wings games. I will say, though, that if it's a choice between a Western game and a K-Wings game and they're both at home, I'm going to Lawson.
I know. But again, it's a completely different atmosphere because of the college student section. The Lawson Lunatics is, as every year, rated one of the best college hockey sections in all of hockey. in college hockey,
including
and,
going
you
into
know,
this
so
year. I think everything
yep,
college
they
hockey
were
came out
already.
with theirs and picked
I
Western
think it
number
was
one
two.
again. 1 or 2, yeah.
Was it one or two?
Somewhere
One or two, somewhere in there. And you know, I didn't even see Duluth on that list, so.
Well, I'm not surprised about that. But yeah, Wes, we're gonna have to change that. We've already been talking about when I come out there this winter, when Western's at home, going to one game at Lawson, and then timing it up with one of your games. And Wes and I we'll have to change the atmosphere a little bit. We might actually cheer for you. Maybe.
Okay, I would appreciate that. I would appreciate that.
I mean,
Wes, I know I told you the last time I was on. Wes scared the living shit out of me. The game he came into, the one of the games he came to, the K-Wings games. I was doing my little stuff I always do while we were doing our warm-ups and everything. I always kind of stand behind the net and I like kind of stick handle and I like fire the puck around the glass and I was kind of just skating around and I turn and I look up and Wes is just sitting there like mean mugging me with his face paint. I'm like, oh Jesus. And I was like, God damn it, Wes.
I will say you hide it well, because I had no idea.
Oh, I jumped, but I was like, oh. I
Oh,
was like, God, I just like looked up and I wasn't expecting anybody to be just like mean mugging me straight into my soul. And I was like, oh my God.
I enjoy watching warm-ups. It's one of my favorite parts of the game.
Yeah.
are you sure you're watching, or do you just fall asleep with your eyes open?
Oh no. I'm definitely watching and seeing what's going on. I like watching the breakdowns of the different drills and shit and seeing what teams do different stuff. Because really, in fact, Western's one of the few that I've seen this year where they had one shooter kind of warming up their goalie as opposed to an entire like umbrella shoot quite a bit.
Yeah, Western's always done that though. Western has always done the one shooter warms up. It would always be whoever's the starter gets whatever they want, like 5 glove, 5 blocker, 5 chest, and then sometimes the backup would jump in there and get a few, and then skate around, and then it's the 3 lines shooting, and then it would go to the corners. God, I still remember it. It would be the 3 line shooting, then it would be the corner single shot. After a bit, it would be then it would be 2-on-1s for a bit, then skate around. Then it was line rushes. It was line rushes. Yep. I still remember Western's warm up.
You do it enough, you're going to remember it.
Yeah, you do it. You're there for 4 years of it. You're going to remember it. Luckily, weirdly enough, Kalamazoo does almost the exact same one. So, like, I'm just like, oh, perfect. Except, we don't do the one-man warm up our hands anymore. I do that in morning skate, but I don't do it during games anymore. I don't do it for games anymore. I find it's too much in a weird way. I find it's almost like overcooking something. You know, I'm just like, okay, I know I'm going to get into the 3 lane shots. I don't need to do specifically glove blocker, and then try to like go into it. Like nobody's going to be just straight shooting at my glove. You know, like I need to be able to react to it. And that's the part that's going to get me warmed up is the reaction to where the shot is going.
The one question that I've been thinking about since we've been talking is I know no, it's not bad. I know I asked you about this the last time we talked and the difference between the college level and the pro level. And you said it was great because you're an adult, figure it out. Like, you know what to do with your body, how to get prepared for games. You can do that. But now with the last couple of years of how you been in the ECHL, gone down to the SPHL, up to the AHL for a couple of games, what's the difference? Because a lot of us, we only see, the NHL, and I know you hear about minor league baseball and the differences between that and their travel and everything and their life experiences, but just the difference between the different leagues that people might not know as far as hockey goes.
It's a very night and day between minor leagues to NHL for both ECHL and AHL, and even ECHL to AHL. There are some big differences, but like, we don't fly very much. We don't fly very often. We flew to Utah and I'm trying to think, we flew somewhere else. But other than that, we bust. You know, my rookie year, had to come back from Christmas break when I was with the Reading Royals. I had came back from Christmas break on the 24th, got into Reading, practiced the 25th at noon, and at 7 o'clock at night, we were getting on a sleeper bus and bussing through the night to get to Maine to play a game on the 27th. So we practiced on the 25th, bussed through the night to the 26th, got there early the 26th, had a practice that day, went back to the hotel, slept, had a morning skate the next day, played in Maine. So I don't know how far that is, but from Reading, Pennsylvania to wherever the Maine Mariners are, we bust through the night on Christmas Day. So, like, it's just stuff like that. And, you know, pro hockey to college hockey is such a difference because you're playing more games but practicing less. Whereas in college, you're practicing more and less games. So college, you'll play about 35 to 38 games, regular season. ECHL, AHL, NHL plays between 72 to 82 regular season games. And then you'll go from there for playoffs. So you're practicing a lot less. So it's how fast can you make your body recover, get your body to recover to 100% so that you can play that next game, you know, because there's times you'll play Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday off, practice Tuesday, play Wednesday. So you're playing 4 games in 6 days. So how fast from you played, okay, let's say I played Friday, Saturday, I had Sunday off, so I didn't play, but I still had to warm up, stretch, get ready, play, like stretch, be in my gear, which is still, you know, I have to go through my whole routine. I have to get fully ready to play in case something happens. So I played Friday, Saturday, I have Sunday off, I have Monday off, I practice Tuesday, and now I'm playing on Wednesday. How fast can I recover Monday, Tuesday to be ready at my absolute best for Wednesday? Whereas college, you could kind of fluff off and play. I just actually weirdly had this conversation with my dad. Well, we were talking about that. I don't start skating. I actually just had my first on ice goalie session skating wise yesterday. I don't start skating till August. I used to skate when I was in college. Western, we'd have to be there, June 1st. We'd be there all of June, July, August. At the very a last week and a half of August to go home, whatever, not do anything, and then come back for the start of the school year. And then play the whole season. And then with Andy Murray, we never had an off weekend. We'd play inter-squad games. And then so by January, our whole team was done. Now that's where I really attribute, and I never got to play for him, Pat Ferschweiler, the new head coach at Western. Look how much Western was still climbing the ladder at the end, really pushing the envelope in the NCAA tournament. Whereas if you looked at the teams that I was on, January we were here, and then we were just...
Yeah, there would be a definite peak, and we couldn't ever seem to get that peak at the right time. Like, you look at a team like Minnesota Duluth, somehow they're playing their best hockey every March. Whereas...
Now, and here's why, is because, yes, they would put in that training, they would put in that effort, they'd put in that work, but their coaches would give them the proper, okay, hey, we've just played 5 weekends in a row. We have an off weekend. Take the weekend off. Recover. Even if it's just, hey, come into the rink and we're going to stretch. We've got the Normatex. We've got hot tub, cold tub. Ride the spin bikes. Something. Recover. Western, we're playing inter-squad game, full contact, try to win. And if you don't win, you're bag skating. It was unbelievable to try and play there because it was just so taxing on your body that you were dead by January. And even those first couple pro years, I did the same thing. I was pushing June 1st, skating. And I was like, I could feel my energy like, oh my God, I just don't have the energy to keep going every day. And weirdly, that year that I played all over the place, I this was last year. I tweaked my MCL when I was in Utah. And at the end of that season, I just continued to play with it. I continued to play with a tweaked MCL. It hurt like hell every game. And I got an x-ray. Everything was fine. But they were like, hey, you need to take like 2.5 weeks off. No skating, no workouts, nothing. I was like, okay. And, or like almost, no, it was like almost like 2 months because by the time it was done. So it was like, hey, you can't get onto the ice till like August. And I was like, oh, okay. So I would get in the gym and I was working out and doing everything, but I wasn't on the ice. And last summer I started skating in August and I was feeling really good, really confident and really consistent with my movements, my skating and everything. And I was like, huh. And then I get into the season. And now granted, yes, I had a little bit of a slow start to the season and my like play wise, but that was more, I would attribute that to being slightly out of shape for other reasons, but then also from workout standpoint. And then also just, I didn't get to play a whole lot in the beginning. You know, we had an affiliate goalie that was there and he was playing really well. And being the affiliate goalie, you're going to get the primetime games to begin unless you get called up or you start to suck. So, but once I kind of finally became my stride, I really flourished. But even during that time where I was struggling, I never felt tired. I never felt lethargic. I never felt like I was out of energy. And that was the biggest difference, was that come January, February, I was still going. I was still had tons of energy. Like, okay, I didn't burn myself out like to get me through the rest of the year. And, you know, that's, I feel like is very good for me, is that I hold that energy and I hold on to it until I need to start ramping it up.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. Mike, you have any other questions there?
No, that was kind of my main one. Before we get to the story, though, I was just looking, and your freshman year, I was in St. Cloud watching you guys get swept in the NCHC tournament.
Oh, God.
So I just had to point that out.
Oh, God.
I was looking, I'm like, I swear, I'm pretty sure I watched a team that Trevor was on.
I had to
look at the roster.
I didn't play.
I know you didn't play, but I just had to look at the roster, and I'm like,
yeah, I was there, but I didn't play. That was tough. That was tough to watch. You might have also been there when we, what was it, my junior year, we lost to Duluth in the playoffs. Yeah, my junior year, we lost to Duluth in the playoffs. Now, that's a little bit of a funny story. So I only had played, 2 games my junior year, and you know, Andy kept throwing this what he used to call his brown and gold games, which was the inter squad games that we'd play in the beginning of the season before we ever played any, you know, before we played Ferris, before we played Bowling Green, before we played any of those like early games, whatever, even the Canadian college preseason game. And I had terrible stats. I was brutal to start the year. You know, I was trying different things. I was trying to, you know, but I was just bad, you know, not to make any excuse. I was just bad. And so as the season went on, I only got to play. I started 1 game. And again, I hate the fact it was against Duluth in Kalamazoo. And we're down 2-0 going into the 3rd period. And I've made like 28 saves or something just through the game. Like 28 or no, and I was what was that? I'd faced like 27 shots through 2 periods or something. And we get into start the 3rd period and we can't get the puck out of our zone. Duluth tried to rim it around. I shot it up along the wall and my own forward just turned it over to the defenseman. The defenseman shot it on me. I made a save. Rebound popped out to Tufty, I believe. Tufty picks it up, takes a half clapper from the dot, goes bar down right next to my ear, bar down for the 30th shot of the game. Andy pulls me from the game, so 3 goals on 30 shots, and says, "You weren't ready to play," kind of thing, and gets in my face about it. And I'm like, never mind the fact that we're outplayed. We're losing 3-0, and like we're out where the shots were like 30-12. Like, never mind that fact. But yeah, you're right. I didn't come to play. So Andy had this very strict rule of high and tight haircuts and as close to clean shaven as possible. Okay. Well, as it kept going down the season, I wasn't even, I was barely, like, I was taking, again, scrap reps in practice and wasn't even giving me a look to back up or anything like that. So I started letting my beard grow out. And I was like, you know what? We're just going to test the waters. We're going to see how long this can go, because I'm doing it out of defiance. Like, hey, you don't seem to notice that I'm outworking Blacker or whoever, and you don't seem to notice any of these things. So I'm going to grow a beard, so see if you notice that. And we lost the first game in Duluth, and I'm in the locker room, and we lost embarrassingly bad. And I'm in the locker room, and Andy calls, like, bursts in the locker room, and he just doesn't say anything to anybody else. He goes, "Trevor, outside now." I was like, okay. So I walk out there, and I'm ready for it. Like, I know he's going to talk about it. And he's like, are you growing a beard out of defiance? And I just look at him and go, yes. I go, you haven't noticed anything I've done on the ice for the last 2 months. So I thought I'd grow a beard and see if you'd notice me. And he kind of looked at me, and he's just like staring. And he goes, well, you're backing up, and that better be gone by the time you get to the rink tonight. I go, okay. So I go back to the hotel, and I go to one of our equipment guys. It was like, hey, you got a trimmer, right? And he was like, yeah. So I used his trimmer, and I trimmed my beard, and I backed up, and we still lost. But I was like, you know what? Fuck you, Andy. So I grew out a beard to like be like, I'm going to stick it to you. See if you notice me some other way.
Yeah, I was just looking at the scores. I didn't go up to that game, but yeah, I just won't bring that up for you.
I appreciate that.
No, the last story, you were going to talk about your last game with the walleye. You were going to come back to that. With that reaction.
Oh God. Well, I'll say this, and this isn't even like a plug or anything. Like, my mom is a very sentimental person. So this is a little bit of a sidebar. My mom's a very sentimental person. She's like, you should take notes on every funny or outlandish or crazy occurrence that has ever happened to you since you played pro hockey. And you should write like a book, and you should write little stories about what happens. And I was like, you're right. So I have a whole note on my phone of just outlandishly titled named stories that like click with my brain. And so just this is one of them. So as I alluded to earlier, I as I'm in Kalamazoo, and I'm trying to just pack up anything and everything that I can that I'm like, okay, I might need to go join this team. I know nothing about the ECHL. I don't know where any of the teams are. I don't know shit. Well, we're coming into the last weekend of the season, and we're playing 3 games in 3 nights in 3 cities. We're playing in Wheeling, West Virginia, then playing home at Toledo versus the Brampton Beast, and then going to Brampton to play the Beast the next day on Sunday. Now, Brampton is in Brampton, Ontario. That's Canada. And you know what's really important to have to go into Canada? A passport. So I realized that we're going to Canada the last game of the season right before that trip, like the week right before we leave for Wheeling. And I'm like, oh shit. So I call my girlfriend. I'm like, you have my apartment keys. I need you to go into my apartment. I need you to get my safe. I need you to get my bring my safe like it has my passport in it. She comes to the game, the game at home where we're playing Brampton at home, and she gives me my safe. And I'm like, oh my God, thank you so much. I love you. Appreciate you so much. Blah, 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 blah. I open my safe. Passport is not in there. I then, in that moment, remember that I had taken my passport out of my safe to take a picture of it because my dad was scheduling a family vacation and was like going through a travel agent and needed a picture of my passport. And my passport was sitting on my desk in Kalamazoo, but I'm leaving directly after this game. Like, it is after the game. We have like 15 minutes to meet with family, loved ones, whatever. And I'm like, fuck, I don't have a passport. So now I have to be like, I have to go to my professional coaches and go, hey, I'm a fucking idiot. I don't have a passport and we're going to Canada. How are we going to make this work? Well, thank God that my birth certificate was in my safe. So I have my birth certificate, my driver's license, and I go to the passport, and then I go to the border, and I hand it to the guy, and they're like, well, and literally the coaches are like, well, gonna just hope to God that works. And I'm like, hope to God that works. What do you mean? And I go, what are you gonna do? Just leave me at the fucking border if it doesn't? They're like, maybe. And I'm like, what do you mean maybe? So I get to the border and I go into the border patrol and they have me go first. They're like, Trevor, go first so we can get this all sorted. And I'm like, fuck. Now the whole team knows because it has gone murmured through the whole team. And they're like, hey, Trevor, that's a great passport. I'm like, fuck you guys. Fuck you. And they're like, oh, that's a sick passport, Trevor. Where'd you get that? I'm like, I hate you all. I hate all of you. And I barely know any of you. So I get up to the guy and the guy looks at me and he goes, you don't have a passport? I was like, I didn't know I was coming to Canada. I just joined the team. And he goes, what do you got? And I go, I got my birth certificate and driver's license. And he goes, there's always one fuck up, isn't there? And I'm like, hey, man, like, stop. So I end up getting through. I end up getting cleared. So I get back on the bus. I'm traumatized as hell. I'm like, oh, my God, I finally made it. Like, I'm okay. I go back into my little bunk. I fall asleep. I'm dead asleep. I wake up. And we're at the rink. The bus is at the rink. And I'm like, oh, shit. So I get off the bus and I go into the rink to like help unpack my stuff. And it's the equipment manager and the trainer and one of the assistant coaches. And they're just looking at me like, why the fuck are you here? And I go, what do you mean? I'm helping unpack the bus. They go, we dropped everybody at the hotel an hour ago. And I'm like, huh? They're like, yeah. And I go, I was still sleeping. They go, they didn't wake you up. I go, no. So now it's like 4 a.m. and I'm at the rink and I'm like, and we're playing at like 3:00 in the afternoon. So I ride the bus back to the hotel with him, get into my room where, and the other goalie who was joining us just for that game was already in the room and he's like, huh? And I'm like, what's up, dude? I'm the goalie. And he goes, where the fuck you been? I was like, don't ask. So I go to bed, wake up at like 10 a.m. the next day to like get some breakfast so that I can like basically go to the rink. And it's the last game of the season and Brampton is doing their annual induction into the Brampton Sports Hall of Fame before they did before the national anthem, and we're all standing out onto the rink for this. It's like a 20-minute process. Jesus. And it's hot as hell in this building, and I skate to the bench because I'm standing out by my goal, and I go, it's fucking hot in here, guys, like, let's go. And they're like, Trevor, shut the fuck up. Like, they're laughing at me. And like, they're like, shut up. Like, quit making a deal of this. And long story short, and I know that's already too late, I end up getting my first pro shutout that game. We shut out the Brampton Beast either 2 or 3-0. I think it was 2-0. And we didn't score until like 7 minutes left in the third period. And after we scored, I looked up and I just saw the 1-0, and I felt like a pitcher who was throwing a perfect game. If you've ever seen the movie For the Love of the Game, when he's sitting there and he's about to go out there for either the 8th or the 9th, and he's looking at the scoreboard, and he's like, has there been anybody on base? Has anything happened? Like, I literally was looking at the scoreboard like, 1-0. Really? It's 1-0? 1-0. Oh, shit. Like, my brain's like, oh, shit, it's 1-0. So now I'm like, okay, calm down. You've acknowledged that you have this going, but you can't say it out loud. So just calm down. 7 minutes. Play goes, like the face-off goes. We're playing. Look up. 6 minutes. I'm like, how the fuck was that only a minute long? It was the longest 7 minutes of my career. And ended up pulling out the shutout, and it was an unbelievable experience. But yeah, the cluster of not having a passport to go to Canada was the epitome of like, oh my God, how am I going to play this game? Because they had no other goalie. They had picked up some Canadian college goalie to be my backup for that game. So they were like, hey, you're our guy. Like, no matter how the game goes, you're playing. I was like, okay. And and I'm just like, I'm now stressing over having a passport to whether or not I can even get into the damn country. So,
I'm a little surprised he didn't look at you and go, "You're the goalie, aren't you?" Like,
yeah, you would have
so there's always one
honestly
goalie. That's where my mind would have gone.
You would have thought, and honestly, I wouldn't have been surprised on like if he would have been like, "You're a goalie, aren't you?" I was like, "Yeah." Let's see.
That's why nothing
what did I name
surprises
that
me
one?
about my brother.
I'm trying to remember where that is at right now. That title or my collection of stories of titles, because that one's got I feel like I've written interesting ideas there. God, where is it? Story. My title of the note is "Stories of a Minor Leaguer." Oh God, yeah. So it's like forgetting the passport to Brampton, sleeping through the hotel stop in Brampton, and then there's just so many more. Like it's a whole note, and just so many things. And like I have stuff in there from Kalamazoo, and from the summer and all sorts of stuff, and just it's very fun, and it's stuff that like I want to get back into of actually like writing those out. Like I have a Word document on my iPad that I've been writing on it, and, so I haven't done it in quite a while, but it's something I want to get back into because it is pretty fun, and it gives I again, as you can tell here, I don't hold back. I'll self-deprecate any and every day. I'm pretty sure I told you the story of my freshman or my sophomore year of almost getting kicked off the Western team, didn't I? Oh God, did I not?
I don't think so.
Oh dear God.
Yeah,
because
we've heard about your freshman
almighty.
year. We've heard your freshman year and your senior year, and we heard about the football game, which Ethan didn't go into too much detail. But we asked him about that.
I hate. Oh yeah. That's what I'm alluding to is the football game.
Okay.
Oh,
good. We're on the
God.
same page here.
Are we going to that now? Is that what I have to spill the beans?
I mean, if you want to.
All right.
We
well,
we're not going to force you to do anything.
Yeah. Actually, before you get to that,
you'll just blackmail me into do. Yeah.
How much are you able to like follow what Western did this last year, or like, is it even something that really kind of crosses your mind once you leave campus? Like, is it? I've had the experience and I'm good with it, or do you kind of look back and go, "Hey, if that team wins the national title, that'll be awesome because I went there too."
I'd say there was probably a year or so where I really didn't. The first year I cared a lot because there was a lot of guys there like Wade Allison and all of those guys that I was really close with, and Frankie and Courtnall and all those guys and Hugh McGing. The next year there was less guys that I was like really invested with, but then this year I kind of was like I do take pride in being a Western Michigan alum, and they are having a great season, and I kept up with them a lot, and I was really proud and a proud alumni to see them having such success. So there was a year and a half spell where I was like, I don't really care, like, and then as corny as it sounds, the alumni spirit kicked in and was like, it is a great city, a great school, and I am really proud to be an alumni. And I do take a lot of pride in that, in being a WMU alum and being a Bronco. So, I did a pretty good job, I felt like, of keeping up. And like I said, Will Massey was my roommate and one of my best friends, and, one of the closest people to me that I'll ever have. And I would talk to him about how the season's going and everything. So, there, like I said, there was a time where I didn't really care, but then I kind of like reverted back to caring.
Okay.
All right. Well, on to this story.
Yeah, we'll wrap it up with this one.
Okay. I got to loosen up for this one. This one's, this is the ultimate self-deprecating and like just dig my own grave. So, okay. Well, we'll just be frank. It's funny because Frankie brought this up. I'll have to shred him for that. I'll have to rip into him for that. Anyway, so at this point in time, I don't know. Beer and I wasn't the biggest fan of beer. I wasn't. Sophomore, I was, even though I was a 21-year-old freshman, I wasn't the biggest fan of beer. And since then, I've become more of a fan of beer. But at the time, I just wasn't a big fan of beer. I preferred liquor. Well, everybody else is at the first tailgate of the year, just drinking straight Bud Lights and whatever. And I'm just like, this is disgusting. Like, this is awful. So I'm drinking. I drank, I think, a case, like a 6-pack of like hard ciders with Fireball mixed together. Again, stupid 22-year-old. Remember this, okay? Like, I've grown. I'm an adult now, okay? I don't even. I smell Fireball, or even someone even says fire, and I'm like,
I hate Fireball.
Same here.
Ugh. I hate it for completely different reasons than you guys do, though.
But anyway, so I drank 6 of those, and then I'm feeling really good. I'm like, okay, I'm not really going to be drinking anymore. All of a sudden, this random girl comes up to me, and she's got a whole handle of Captain Morgan, and she goes, "No face, no chase," and I'm like, what? And she like shoves the bottle in my chest again. She goes, "No face, no chase. That means you take a drink and you don't make a face and you don't get a chaser. Otherwise, you got to drink again." And I'm like, this sounds like a terrible idea. Let's fucking do it. And so there I am, just taking pull after pull, going back and forth of Captain Morgan. And this went from a full handle to like that much left. And then all of a sudden, what dragged me away was my teammates going like, "Hey, we got to go to the football field. We got to go. We're doing our getting our Letterman jackets." I was like, okay. And I am now blackout. I am gone. Trevor is no longer. This is someone else. I am no longer here. Trevor isn't even in the passenger seat or the back seat. Trevor is in the trunk and someone else is driving. Okay. Like, all I remember is I got to the field house, the practice facility at Western, and I tried to immediately go to the bathroom. And I'm like, I got to throw up, and I can't throw up. I've never been able to force myself to do that, and I'm like trying to sober up, and I'm like, okay, I'm good. I'm drinking water. I'm drinking Gatorade. I'm like buying waters and Gatorades out of the vending machines, just chugging them, trying to like sober up or get enough fluids in me to make me throw up or something. Won't happen. So then we're all standing in this little foyer area, and they're like, "Everybody cluster together. We want to get a picture of all the athletes." So like, I'm like, we're leaning in, and this girl like goes, "No, scoot back," and pushes me right in my stomach, and I feel like, oh, that's all it would have taken. So I kind of go like, and like throw up a little bit in my hand, and I immediately duck into the practice field where I know there's a trash can. Spill my guts into the trash can. I'm like, oh, thank God, nobody noticed, nobody saw, nothing. We're okay. We're good. So now this is my recollection. Now, obviously, shit happened after this during this time that I didn't know happened. Well, I'll jump back to that. Apparently, as everybody was funneling out of that foyer onto the practice field, a girl slipped in my vomit, and that drew attention. To which then we're on the practice field, and they're just like, "Hey, hockey team, line up." They didn't give us any like, "Hey, go numerically, go alphabetically." We're just lined up. So I'm like standing there, and like there's these, cheerleaders, and one of them was, I don't know, she was dating a guy on our team or something like that, and they just broken up, and she was being a real, bee with an itch, and none of us really liked her. She was on our shit list, and I just kind of saw her, and all of a sudden I kind of went like kind of burped, and like, and I kind of threw up a little bit on her back, like on the back of her skirt. And I was like, I started to tell her, and I was like, "Nah, we hate her anyway, fuck her." And so we just left it. So then we're walking out onto the field. We are walking out onto the football field in front of everybody. Opening day, first football game of the season. We are walking out. I am stumbling like a drunk sailor or a newborn giraffe. Like, take your pick. And I get out there, and we're standing there. We're standing there on the goal line, and they're going to announce us. And like, we're looking down. I'm like, okay, like, how are they doing this? Like, how? And they're like, "From the volleyball team, so-and-so." And she takes a step forward and gives a big wave, and then steps back, and then it's the next person. So we're like, okay, so all we got to do is when they say your name, you step forward and give your little wave, and then you step back in the line. We're like, oh, cool. And so I'm like second in line, thinking we're going alphabetically. And I start to step out, they don't say my name, and I'm already like waving. I go, put my hand down, step back, try to readjust like where I'm at in the order. Think I go like 2 more people down. Now I'm like, yeah, it's me. Still not me. Another like 2 people down, and I'm the last one. And then finally I step out and give my little wave and everything. And everybody in the stands is just crying, laughing. Like all of my teammates are cackling, laughing, and everything at me just being a fucking idiot, like jumping out to give my little wave, and they're announcing like they're like, and Colt Conrad, and there I am like, okay, Colt going, no, that ain't me, and then step back and be like, oh no, I gotta go over here, and and then so it kind of came out. And like I said, the girl slipped and fell in it, and then it spiraled from there, and then it got to who was the most drunk on the hockey team, and that was me. So I was suspended from the team for 7 days. I wasn't allowed to go anywhere near the Lawson, the team, nothing. I wasn't allowed to work out with them. So during that 7 days, though, the entire rest of the team is getting like bag worked out, like run a mile around the track, run ring road, run another mile, and then go to practice. And I'm doing all of these the day after because I lived with Corey Schooneman, Jade McMullen, and Matheson Icapelli. So I was like, what'd you guys do today as the punishment? And one day they were like, we swam laps in the pool for an hour and then went and practiced. And I was like, okay. So there I am swimming laps in the pool at Lawson. And it was just, so I was doing all of these punishments. And then finally, Andy brings me in for a meeting. I tell him how ungodly sorry I am. It will never happen again. I will never get in trouble again, so on and so forth. This hockey means everything to me. This was a stupid mistake, blah, blah, blah. I'm allowed back on the team, except, and I've already told him that I've been doing all of these punishments the day after that they've done them, so that I'm keeping up and still doing them with the team. That is an important part of this story. I then had to do all 7 of those punishments with Andy Murray for the next week. Just he and we'd go out there, run a mile on the track, and then I'm behind. I would run behind his car on Ring Road at like 6 a.m, and then get back to the track, run a mile, and then we'd go to practice. He'd let me jump in his car to go to practice. Then I had to swim laps as he's standing. If you've ever been at Lawson, Wes, you'll know, like up in the offices, you can like stand up in the office and look into the pool. He's standing in the offices, looking out the window, watching me swim laps and then get out to go practice. I had to do all of these punishments twice because he was like, well, you've already done them on your own, but that's only your word. So you're going to have to do them again so you can prove to me you've done them. So I had to do 14 days worth of punishments when everybody else did 7. And I was like, wow, this is what it took for me not to get kicked off a college hockey team for being a drunk idiot. Got it. Okay, this is never going to happen again. So, and then what's funny is like every other team, we all run a kangaroo court. So we all have a team kangaroo court. And, this isn't a spoiler to anybody. And, some people are like, oh, you shouldn't talk about it. Everybody knows. It's been in enough movies and whatever. Up until the year after I graduated, so the 2022 season, or 2020 season. So the year that COVID cut the college season short and cut my season short and everything. Excuse me. That was the final year that I had to pay a $40 team fine for the first tailgate of the year because Andy was still so hesitant to let them go to the tailgate. So every season when it came to first tailgate of the year, I had to throw $40 in as like hey, sorry that this is such a clusterfuck now because Andy doesn't trust us. Oh, sorry. So even the year after I was done, graduated, not even at Western, I got a Venmo request from Cale Bennett, $40 for tailgate. And I was like, God damn it. And I told him too, I go back. I went back to that year and I went, I'm never paying another one. I go, this is the last one. They were like, okay, that's acceptable. So yeah, I paid, what was that? Sophomore, junior, senior, and then first year, I paid 4 years worth of fines of $40 for the first tailgate of the year.
Oh, that's terrific.
Yeah. It was something to say the least.
I can't wait for this audio book to come out because I will buy the hell out of it.
Oh God, I don't know if I'm ever going to put that story in there. These are all just like stories of like pro hockey and stuff, and I'll take screenshots and I'll send you guys the titles of them because like some of them are a little raunchy and whatever, but like they're funny and like the stories behind them are hilarious. So I'll take screenshots of the titles of the stories and I'll send them to you so you guys can see them. And I really am. I'm going to start getting back into it and writing more about those stories and getting into them because I don't want to forget too many of the details. As they go, as you keep going, like I got to keep up with them so that I don't forget the details that went into them.
Oh, and you're gonna take a few more pucks to the head too to keep them out of the net.
Oh God, yeah, Jesus. I take plenty of pucks to the head. I don't shy away from that. It's a save.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's a save.
As my dad would say, you got a mask.
I mean,
You're not blocking it with your teeth.
Yeah, exactly. So
I use the same logic as a baseball catcher. If it went off my mask and kept it in front of me, it was fine.
Yeah, gosh, exactly.
So
and now you are the way you are.
I mean,
and that's why I am the way that I am.
Part of it. There's some other events that have taken place that have,
probably. I feel like we all have that.
I don't remember as well as others, but
yeah,
I don't really know that we can end the show on a better note. So I think we're gonna call it there.
Yeah, no, sounds good, guys.
You're welcome back anytime if something major happens. I don't know if he's still there or not, but we do put episodes on YouTube. So if you happen to go on YouTube and you want to look up Goal Horns and Fight Songs, we're there. Give us a follow or a sub or whatever it's called over there. Give a video a like. I don't care. If you're here on Twitter or Twitch and you liked what you saw and you want to follow the channel, go ahead. If not, that's cool too. Stop by only when Trevor's here. Whatever. It's fine. We're all on Twitter. Trevor is at Trevor Gorsuch 35. I'm at _Bronco. And Mike is at Maro04. Until the next episode, catch you guys later. Have a good one.